Hi everyone, and in this workshop video we're going to be having a look at this, the Traintech AL2 Auto Tail and Firebox Lighting Kit. So this is a way of being able to add lighting effects to rolling stock such as wagons and coaches without having to go through the really difficult process of trying to give them electrical contacts and pickups and somehow get them to pick up electricity from the rails. It's also a much more cost-effective way of being able to do it because these kits are relatively inexpensive and come with everything that you need straight out of the pack, ready to go. So if we have a look what's in the pack, first of all. Okay, so what you get, obviously a set of instructions, which we'll have a look in more detail in a second. You get this little battery holder, which has a very small circuit board with a few little chips and some sockets on the back. You get the battery that you need, so a CR2032 battery, and then you get two LEDs. Now they provide you two in this particular kit so that you have a little bit of a choice. This one, the AL2, provides a flickering flame effect. So rather than a constant electrical light, it's a flickering light like an oil lamp. So you can simulate that with this little red LED that's even been shaped slightly. So I don't know if you'll be able to focus on that. But it's been shaped ever so slightly to resemble an oil lamp that you'd have at the back. But because it's a flickering flame effect, you could also use this for a firebox in a locomotive to try and make it look as if the door was open and you could see the flames inside. And so they also provide you with this orange LED that's a little bit brighter and allows you to put that inside the firebox of the locomotive. Now for this particular workshop we're going to try and actually fit it to a coach. So we're going to fit it to this, which is one of the premium quality Hornby coaches, one of the LMS half brake coaches that goes at the back of our train. And so what we're going to try and do is fit the red tail light onto one of these little lamp hooks at the back and make it look like she's actually got a working lamp. So if we have a look for a moment at the instructions that come with the kit, you can see that they're quite comprehensive. You need to take a minute or two to read through these first yourself. But if we have a look at this box at the top, it basically gives you a really nice clear diagram that shows a push fit system where you can just slot the LEDs into those little sockets on the PCB and put the battery in the bottom, and that's it. The system works. It's all controlled entirely by a little circuit that detects movement. So a little bit like the sound chip that Will had a look at in a previous workshop video, as soon as there's a little bit of motion from the coach or the wagon on the track, that sets the light off and it will flicker and blink as long as it detects motion, and then about 3 or 4 minutes afterwards it should cut out and turn itself off. Because of that, it means that the battery can actually last quite a while, so you don't have to keep swapping it very regularly, but it also means that that battery power makes it a lot easier to get power into the coach rather than trying to actually get pickups on all the wheels. There are actually 4 sockets that it shows on the diagram there, so you can actually plug both LEDs in at the same time if you wanted to. 2 of the sockets are low output and 2 of the sockets are high output, so you can have either a brighter or a dimmer light from your system. Now obviously, technically in this situation you probably wouldn't be able to use both the rear light and the flickering flame for the firebox because they'd be too far apart. But I suppose you could easily attach some wires to this and run them through different parts of your train to actually make use of it from one chip if you wanted to keep costs even lower. What it does recommend in these instructions is that you actually try plugging them in before you install them into your coach, just to check that they're working and make sure that you understand which way around everything fits. So I'm going to give that a quick go first. So, if I take the battery holder and the unit here and take the LED, I'm going to take the rear lamp LED at the moment and try and plug that in. It's clearly marked on the sticky label on the top which section is positive and which is negative, so I'm going to push the longer leg into the positive hole and the shorter leg into negative, like that. And then all I have to do is push the battery in. Again, it's clearly labelled which side is positive, so you can match that up with the battery and push it in. And then because, obviously I'm moving this around, as soon as I've plugged it in, it starts to light up. And hopefully what you can see is that it's a flickering flame effect. It keeps dimming slightly in and out at irregular intervals, just like a real natural flame would. And the instructions also say that if you actually go over bumpy track, so if I jiggle it a little, then the flickering increases. Again, just as a natural flame would if it was bouncing around a little bit. So that's quite clever. If I just take that out, so I'll pull the battery out of the holder and take that LED out of there, and then I'm just going to have a look at what the firebox LED looks like as well. They recommend in the instructions that this one goes into the high output sockets, so I'll push that into the other two holes there. Again, push the battery in and straight away that comes to life. So it is much brighter and it's much more of an orange fire effect, but again you can see that same flickering just like a natural fire. So the system works perfectly. All that I need to do now is fit it to the coach. Now in order to do that, we need to drill two very small holes just around where the lamp hook is on the rear of the coach there, so that you can push the legs of the LED through the holes and then attach the power system actually at the back inside the coach. To do that, I've got a small micro drill. So this one is about a 0.8mm diameter drill bit into a little pin vise to be able to hold it and actually operate it more easily. And I'll be using that to drill a hole just above the lamp hook there, and then one just below and to the side there, so that actually when the LED fits in, drops into place, it'll look like it's actually sat on that lamp hook, just like the real lamp would have done. Before I can do any of that though, I need to actually do a little bit of modification to this LED, because obviously you can see that it's red plastic all the way around, which wouldn't look realistic at all. So what I need to do is get a little bit of modelling paint and paint up the sides around the little bulb in white, and I'm going to paint some of the top section of the legs of the LED in black so that they don't stand out on the model. Okay, so while that white paint is off drying to one side for a second, we can now turn our attention to preparing the coach. So I need to remove the body first of all, and with these Hornby coaches there's some tiny little plastic lugs just under the corner at each end. So I need to push them out of the way. So I'm just going to use one of these little plastic separating tools that I got from eBay to just help me get into these corners a little bit easier. And I can just push it down, push it away and lever that up, and the same on the other side, so that comes away. There's then a catch in the middle which you can pry apart, and with all those plastic clips removed, the bottom will come away. Be careful because there is a little metal sheet to weight it down in the middle there that is stuck with a little piece of self-adhesive tape at the back, but does have a tendency to sometimes fall out. so just be careful it doesn't drop somewhere and damage anything. And then if I lift out that section, there's the seating and the interior section there. And then we've got the main body of our coach. So what I need to do is use my little micro drill to add in those 2 holes just here. You can see that. Just above and just below that lamp hook. So when it comes to drilling these holes, I'm going to put my first one just above that lamp hook on the left there. So I'm going to line the drill up with the top and gently turn that to make that first hole. Okay, so that's the first one made. The second one then needs to be just the right distance away from the first so that the legs of the LED will slip through without having to bend and push too much. So I made sure I did a few little bits of practice first, so I used a little bit of scrap plastic and practiced making sure that I lined them up properly and that everything fit neatly before I started to actually do work on the coach itself. And what I found, the easiest way is to drop the longest leg just into the hole that I've made, and then you can use the other leg to see exactly where that hole needs to go. So very quickly, I've been left with 2 holes in the coach leading through to the inside. One of them is slightly off centre because I didn't want to remove the lamp hook completely. I wanted it to look like we'd sat the lamp on the hook properly, and so that meant that I had to put the hole just to the side. So all I'm going to do when I fit the LED in is bend the wire a little bit to one side so that I can still have the lamp fairly straight on the hook without having to remove it completely. Okay, so with our little lamp LED all painted up and with that bottom wire bent ever so slightly right at the plastic casing there and then back again just to straighten it up where those holes are a little bit uneven. All that remains now is to put a little dab of glue on the lamp hook there and feed the 2 wires through the holes. So I'll put the glue on with a little cocktail stick just so I can get very precise without spreading too much. And then making sure I've got the LED the right way up so the little curved edges at the top. One wire goes through that hole, the other wire goes through that hole. Feed it through. Pull it through from behind. And I'm just going to use a pair of pliers just to give it that final pull to make sure that is all in place while that glue sets. Okay, so with the lamp in place and glued in, what you can see is I've also then bent over the pins on the back and then back again to stick them out into the middle of the body, just so they're right in the centre, because on the insert piece here there's these 2 uprights at either side that would get in the way of where those wires were running. So with that now sticking out neatly in the middle, all I need to do is trim off the longer leg, which is there to indicate the positive on the LED, so that they're both exactly the same length. So just some cutters to cut them off. So now both pins are exactly the same length so that they'll fit more easily into the power unit. Again, I'm going to go with the low power for this rear lamp, and the plus is there, so that needs to go in the body that way. And then just line up the holes and push it in. Okay. And then finally, just to make sure it's still working, you need to put in the battery. So positive goes to the outside. And with that in place, turn it over and our lamp is blinking away. Now obviously that's going to continue blinking while I'm moving this around. So you'll have to ignore the flashing, but now all that remains is to put all the body back together. So that insert section can go in first, just so I can make sure that everything fits around it. And then that goes on top of the section at the bottom. Okay, and there we have it. So we've got our half brake coach for the rear of our train, which now has its own little blinking tail lamp. At this stage, I can still see a little bit of light bleed coming through the white paint, so I think a little bit of a second coat and touch up will be necessary once the first coat is properly dried. And I can see the actual battery unit through these rear windows. Now it's not too bad, because obviously right at the rear it's quite a darkened space anyway, so it's not completely obvious. I'm not even sure you can see it on the camera, but I can see it a little bit through the windows. So I suppose if I wanted to, I could hide that out of the way by actually sticking the battery box into the roof of the coach and leading some extra wire up and around and fitting into those sockets. Now that would require a little extra soldering and making sure all those wires sort of hidden out of the way. So not a necessary job, but it is a little something that you could do to make it even tidier if you wanted to. But on the whole, I'm really impressed with the Traintech AL2 flashing light or flickering light. Nice and easy to fit, nice and bright at the back, a nice little flickering effect. It's ready for the track.